All right, so what's up, everybody? I wanted to welcome you not only to the channel if you're new, but also to, more importantly, my NFL Top 100 series. I just finished my NFL offseason team recap series with Mike, where we went through all 32 teams for, basically like the last 5 weeks. And, we discussed their draft class. We evaluated all their offseason acquisitions. We talked about their offensive and defensive depth charts, their schedules, really anything that we thought was relevant to the teams. But, the big question has been what's next? So kind of what I've been thinking of and really hoping to do for a while, and now we're going to put that plan into action, is this Top 100 series. There's a lot of people who do them. Obviously, the NFL, there's CBS, there's PFF. Bleacher Report has a bunch of different authors that do them. And just a ton of fans, will post them on Twitter, post them on Instagram, or anywhere they want, But what they often don't do is they don't really explain the process that went into it. They don't explain the criteria that went into it. So that's kind of what I want to do here, because I do think that my list is a little bit unique to most of them that you see really today. So first off, what I wanted to talk about is the process. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but basically what I did was I went through each team's depth chart in the NFL 3 times. I did it once on my own. I did it another time with Mike, and I did it a third time on my own. And what I did basically is I went through every single player on every single team, and I said who could be worthy of being on my list, right? So the first time I came out with 189 players, the second time Mike and I came out with 195, and the third time I came out with 198. And I feel really comfortable in saying that, like, that's that's kind of the final number. It's 198 players that were in consideration. So basically what I had is I had 3 Google Sheets windows open, and I was clicking and dragging guys from one tab to the next as I was deciding that, okay, these guys are moving on from the top 196 to the top 100. And then after I got those top 100, what I decided to do was pull them down to the next one and basically rank them. So don't think that I forgot, your favorite players. I didn't forget guys off your favorite team. If they were worthy of potentially being on this list, they were in consideration. And what I'll say to that is, a lot of times those guys don't get credit, that 101 to 196. So maybe if the series goes well, I'll do a little expansion series, and we'll do videos for those guys too. And I'll rank all those 196 to 101. But that's not what this is going to be. This is going to be the top 100, as that's kind of the prototypical number and, really the standard for these types of series. So, with these series, though, they come in all different really shapes and sizes, and you never really know what's going on with them. So what I wanted to do was really explain first what my series is not, and then I want to say what it is. So it's not a 2019 top performers list. It's not like the NFL does theirs where, okay, this guy was the NFL MVP last season, he's automatically top 3, top 5, whatever. It's not, oh, this guy had one breakout year, he is automatically top 15, top 20, top 30. That's not how this list is going to go. We're not solely looking at 2019. But with that being said, we're not looking at their entire careers necessarily either. It's not a career achievement award. It's not, oh, here's a celebration of Frank Gore, Larry Fitzgerald, Tom Brady, all these older guys who are definitely worthy of praise, no doubt. But they're not top 100 players right now, and that's what we're going to be looking at here. We're not like accumulating all of their stats and saying, oh, he was the best quarterback, or he's the best of all time, so he's here on the list, or Larry Fitz is one of the best receivers of all time. That's not going to earn him a spot on this list. Also, though, in that same vein, it's not a future projection list either. I think of Bradley Chubb. I loved him. I loved him coming out of NC State, and he's shown a lot of promise with the Broncos. Well, here's the thing: I might think that he will be a top 100 player next season and for the rest of his career, but he's not right now. He hasn't shown us that right now he is worthy of being on this list. So none of those guys are going to be on here. You look at a guy like Baker Mayfield, let's say. He produced his rookie year and not so well last year, but now it's like, oh, he gets Jedrick Wills, he gets Jack Conklin, he gets Austin Hooper. Oh, he's going to have a great year next year. And I actually think he probably will. It doesn't mean he's going to be on the list. It's not me projecting top performers of 2020 either. It's also not position dependent. It's not a value list. It's not if I have a running back ranked over a cornerback, it's not me saying that I'd rather have the running back on my team than the cornerback. That's not what it is. It's a list of basically who is best at what they do. And it's not me saying that, oh, nobody else can be above a quarterback because the quarterback's most valuable. No, that's just not what this list is. And lastly, it's not a popularity contest. I I always tell people when they ask like what team am I a fan of, well, I'm a football fan first, and I would be doing a disservice if I was putting just my favorite players and players that I enjoy to watch on here for that sake. If they deserve it, of course I'll put them on, but I'm not going to put, for example, Ndamukong Suh. As I live in Michigan. I am technically a Lions fan, unfortunately, but Ndamukong Suh, for example, one of my favorite players of all time. Is he going to be on the list? No, because that's not what this list is about. Like I said, it's not a career achievement award. It's not a future projection list. And it's not just a last year list either. There's an element of consistency that is super important to this list that people have to recognize as well, because sure, even if a guy was out last year with an injury, or even if a guy had a down year, that doesn't mean that they're not an elite player anymore. And it doesn't mean that one guy who had a great year last year is a more elite player than them. That's just not the case. So what the heck is it? I've basically said everything under the sun that it can't be. What is it? I tried to summarize it here. It's my best attempt to isolate and rank the top 100 players in the NFL today based on their individual talents and abilities, regardless of the situation they find themselves in and the team they are on. Now, that last part is very important. So what does that mean? Let me think of a guy like Corey Littleton, right? Really good player for the Rams the last couple of years. And last year in particular, he had well over 100 tackles, multiple interceptions, some sacks, great production. And he'll probably be on the NFL's top 100 player list, right? Well, a guy like that's not going to be on my list, because what this list is, like I said, regardless of the situation they find themselves in. So when you put on Corey Littleton film, you'll see that a large amount of his tackles were really the product of what a guy like Aaron Donald does in keeping on being able to climb to the second level. A lot of those tackles are just unblocked, making plays that he should make. I'm not going to overly praise him when I might think that there's 15 guys who could make those plays and make them at a better rate than he does. So I'm not just looking at your statistical production. That's not what this list is at all. Just because a running back got 1,200 yards last year and this other one got 1,100 yards, it doesn't mean that this one's going to be higher than this one. I'm also taking into account their situation. I'm taking into account, really just the rest of their entire team. Like if a running back is running behind the best offensive line in football versus one with turnstiles, and they each have pretty similar yard totals, which one is actually a better player and would produce better in an equal situation? It's probably the one who had worse stats, and that's the thing. A lot of people don't really like to admit that. So you think of, I want to have a good example here. You think of a guy like Yannick Ngakoue, right? So he's played with Calais Campbell his entire career. Calais being one of the most disruptive, one of the absolute best interior defensive linemen in the league. Well, Yannick's had fantastic production. Well, Yannick also could have been drafted just as easily into a situation where they had nobody on their defensive line. He was automatically the best player, and his statistical production, it just wouldn't be anywhere close to where it is currently. Does that mean that Yannick is a better player or a worse player? No. He's still Yannick Ngakoue. That's the thing. So I'm trying to isolate them based on their individual talents and abilities. I'm trying to find things that would be universal no matter the situation that they are in and rank them based off that. You're not going to be – just because you have a great quarterback throwing to you and you're able to really capitalize on that, it doesn't mean that you're going to be higher than a guy who has someone terrible throwing to them who, had slightly worse production. That's just not real. And I'm trying to take that into account the best I can. I don't want you to think that I'm slighting guys who are in great situations, because I talk about them a lot in my last series. They're force multipliers who make people better. It's like, okay, yeah, Aaron Donald had the Dante Fowlers, he's had the Ndamukong Suhs, Jalen Ramsey's on his team, but like he was at the end of the day the most disruptive player on that team for a reason, and he's going to be recognized for that. But some of those other guys, then, if you are, for example, a Chris Godwin, if you're going primarily up against number 2 cornerbacks, well, it's kind of ridiculous to say that what Chris Godwin did in Tampa Bay last season, that somebody like Keenan Allen couldn't have done, or somebody like Odell Beckham or Stephon Diggs or Amari Cooper. It's insane to say that those guys, those incredibly talented guys, couldn't do what Godwin did in Tampa Bay. So sure, he had a fantastic season, but it also helps the situation that he was in. Obviously having Mike Evans beside him, having a quarterback who would just throw the ball downfield recklessly in Jameis Winston, and you have to take that into account. Obviously, people will look at stats like PFF WAR that say Godwin was the most valuable non-quarterback in the league last year. Well, Godwin's not going to be close to that on this list because I don't believe in that's how you should rank players. You know, football's not a one-on-one game, and to act like it is just disingenuous because there is an impact on everybody on the field. You know, I've talked about it previously. Like, I'm currently a D2 offensive lineman. Well, if I off the snap just turn around and put my hands behind my back and the DN gets a sack in a second and a half, it doesn't matter if Pat Mahomes is my quarterback. He's going to look like absolute crap, you know? So everybody matters on the field. And, you know, obviously some matter more than others, some positions, of course, but to act like – what I do doesn't impact the quarterback or the right guard or the running back or the receiver who's best at, you know, taking the top off the defense and needs a lot of time in the pocket to get the ball to him deep. Like, you can't act like my job isn't impacting his. So, of course, it'd be great to have a way to quantify that, and we really can't. So, of course, this is a subjective list. This isn't some factual list necessarily, but it's to me as objective as I could make it. And really, that's about it. You know, I'm really looking forward to this project. It's definitely an ambitious one, to say the least. Considering, like, when you see the NFL do it, they probably have a whole staff of guys going, and I'm going to be trying to do this one all on my own. But, you know, I think it's going to be a fun time. And as I said, if you guys are enjoying this series and would like to see even more, make sure you let me know. Make sure you're liking. Make sure you're commenting. And, you know, if you want to keep up with the series on a live basis, I'm going to try and post anywhere from like 2 to 4 videos a day. Just make sure you subscribe, you know, so that way you're constantly updated on when those videos are going live. You can constantly see who's next on the list, and you know, hopefully we can have some really interesting discussion here in terms of, is my list accurate or is my list completely garbage, you know? So with that being said, I'm mic'd up and now I'm mic'ing out. Peace, guys.